Guys, I'm Will,
And I'm Kim.
and we run Wild Bill Wellness. I'm Wild Bill, and we talk all things wellness. Today on Let's Have a Chat Tuesday, we have special guests, a family that have an experience that I think a lot of people can relate to and can benefit from.
Yeah. So today is a bit closer to my heart than Will's, as we chat with the Southons, and they currently reside in Brisbane. But we'll pass it over to Nick and Nadia and ask them to, maybe we'll start with something a little bit light. And if you want to introduce yourselves, tell us what nationality you are, your culture, where you were brought up, maybe even give us a bit of background into how you guys met.
Do you want to start? You go.
Well, I'm Nadia Southon. Hitting together. We just celebrated 20 years together yesterday.
Wow.
So we've been together since we were little. Actually, since we were our daughter's age. So
Yeah.
that she is now. So it's
A bit scary.
yeah.
True love, eh?
True love.
We look at her and we go, oh, she's nothing like us.
Yeah.
We've been together a long time. Long time.
Cool.
So I met Nadia when it was my first year at university. So we're from Auckland originally. I'm from Samoan Chinese heritage. Samoan on both sides. Both my parents are half caste Samoan, and their parents are also half caste Samoan. So it's a funny sort of second, third generational mix. But yeah, grew up in Auckland, spent some time in the States, spent some time in Samoa growing up as well, Fiji. I was sent back home to New Zealand to finish off my secondary school. So I left New Zealand when I was 11, came back when I was 16, and met Nadia when I was 17.
Wow.
So that all sort of happened from there.
And how old are you now?
I'm 38 this year, 2020. Still got 20 vision though. Yeah, so Nadia and I met through a mutual friend, and we didn't like each other at the beginning. We actually clashed big time.
We had a fight in our first conversation. It was like this. It was, yeah.
But I think it was like, just because we're too much alike, I think we were just, like you butt heads with people that, you have a lot in common with, as funny as it sounds. And I think it was like, like it was pretty hot and heavy in the beginning, you know what I mean?
Too much information,
So from the beginning, we're obviously very, very passionate towards each other, because we've been together all this time, right? 20 years we celebrated last night. And it wasn't also like
yesterday, not just last night.
Yeah, last night. So I'm trying to get the backstory. So maybe 2 or 3 years after we had met and were dating, Nadia and I fell pregnant with Samara. So we've only got the one child, and so we were quite young when she was born.
Yeah.
So Samara is 17 now.
Wow. How old were you when Samara was born?
I was 19.
19. Okay, yeah. And so, for me, even, listening to this kind of cracks me up, because, little segments of this, I would have been, even younger than that. So tell us about Samara. So she's 17.
She's 17. She's year 12. She's about to finish high school. She just got braces.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And dream come true.
So who's she like?
Oh man, she's like both of us. She's got my mouth, but she's like quirky like Nick.
Is that quirky? Yes, that's another word for weird.
You got an American accent on the
Tomato.
Samara's very easygoing, just very go with the flow. Not too serious about anything, but she's got her head screwed on right, which is
she's always been very chill.
She's very family oriented. She loves hanging out with her aunties and uncles and cousins. She's got lots of cousins. Being her only child, she's grown up with a lot of her cousins. So she's very close with especially her cousins.
Yeah.
On both sides. She likes to sleep. She likes to eat rubbish. She's
Yeah.
probably buried in her phone, just like every other teenager. But, like it's her last year of high school. We are, being optimistic about what lays ahead for her.
Yeah, cool. So with Samara, so why we have Nick and Nadia on Let's Chat Tuesday is back in 2011, Samara was diagnosed with leukemia. We were hoping you could walk us through that and take us on a bit of a journey about what if you could go back there, and I know it's going back like 9 years now, and but what was that like? So what was the lead up to that? How did you know your daughter had leukemia? How were you told? Things like that. Whatever that looks like and you're comfortable with sharing, please share with us.
No, we're very comfortable. So what happened was in 2010, end of 2010, school holidays, Christmas holidays, we noticed changes in her, but nothing alarming. And that kind of dragged out the whole school holidays. We just noticed that she was pretty lethargic, probably was the only thing, but it was a really hot summer. So we were like, oh, because all of a sudden she's gone from being a kid that likes to play outside to just, she's just on the couch all the time. And that was all she wanted to do. So that didn't really send any red flags, raise any red flags. So then school starts, and that's when it starts to become a problem with her just getting sick all the time. That's when we started looking more into what was going on, because she spent 6 weeks undiagnosed from the time that we knew that it could be serious or that we had to look elsewhere. So she'd been diagnosed with just cold and flu symptoms. She was having lots of fevers. She was very lethargic. And then it was when the bone pain started, right? Am I missing anything?
Yeah. It was like 6 weeks in the lead up to her being diagnosed that she was just constantly sick. And we knew that she was constantly, when children are sick, you sort of take it for granted. You don't really think about it too in depth. But the only reason why it was sort of like red flags everywhere was because we were constantly taking time off work. Nadia was working in the office at that stage. I was too. And it was like 1-2 days a week consistently for like 4 or 5 weeks. You know what I mean? It just wasn't. And we were confused. We thought that maybe like she was being bullied at school. There was something at school. She didn't want to go to school. She was complaining about having a sore leg, her left leg, but then the next day it's her right leg, we're like, what, which leg is it? What's going on here? And it was just very strange. And then, it wasn't until...
It was your mum, she was pushing us too, because we kept taking her to all these GPs up the coast, down the coast. Her next mum was staying in Australia at the time, and she was watching her a lot because we couldn't take time off work, and she kept saying to just push for a blood test or a second opinion.
That's right, yeah.
But at the time, I was like one of those parents that just did whatever the GP said. I don't know any better. You say she just needs to crap in a jar, that's all you need, then I'm not going to question it. I just didn't like to question those things. Yeah. So eventually we did, and that's all it took before they found it. So she went in, and at this stage she had severe bone pain, and she wasn't even able to walk. I was chucking her in hot baths and just trying to. It was kind of a case of the GP was even telling us that that they're phantom symptoms, so maybe she's been bullied, and so I was just chucking her a Panadol and just going, have a hot bath, you're fine, and she's crying, and I'm going, oh, whatever, you're just putting it on, because I just listened to the doctors back then. So finally, blood test showed that, and then we went in straight away, and then it was just, everything was go from there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a strange time, because you sort of just don't think, you never think that, you just think that your child's just got a cold or picked up some sort of infection or fever or something like that. You never really, push for a blood test. But it got to a point where our gut instinct sort of kicked in. And I think 4 weeks into this journey that we're in, it was like, man, something's just not right here. I think, and even though it's it was a shock when we initially found out officially from the GP or from the doctor that that she had blood cancer. I think like the gut feeling was that something serious was happening, and when the result came, like as much as we were shocked, we weren't, we knew that there was something that had to be found. So yeah.
When it was once it was confirmed from the doctor, individually, what was your initial thoughts running through your head with what's been happening in the past? And as soon as you got it, was confirmed, like 100% confirmed what it was. Like Nadia, take us through your thoughts and then Nick, share with yours.
It was pretty horrible the way that it happened, because I'm not dissing GPs, but we just didn't have a good one, which is what I put a lot of emphasis on now, is like, don't just go anywhere, because he didn't even want to tell us. Like, so we got called back after her blood test, and that's where he should have told us, but he didn't. The guy, like the GP, stumbled on his words, and I guess at some point he decided he wasn't going to say, he was just going to give me this referral to go to the hospital. But because I was anxious, he left us in the room. Samara can't walk, she's laying on the bed, and I'm just sitting there waiting, knowing I'm about to get bad news, but he won't tell me. So will I get in trouble for saying?
Nah, like it was.
So I jumped on his computer when he left, because he went to
Get Nadia.
Well, because he wasn't saying, and you have to imagine, I'm sitting there just
you do it
like,
for your daughter, mate.
Yeah.
Daughter.
I don't know what his problem is or what, but I know he's having trouble saying something, and I'm dumb. I don't know what anything is. He did say the word oncologist, and I was just like, yeah, and then he left the room, and he came. He says, "I'm going to give you something to give to him, and take her to the hospital." And that was how he was basically telling me. So when he left, he had the screen already up, and I just scrolled through his notes, and then I just saw the word leukemia, and then I completely just, from there, it's a blur because I lost it.
Yeah, and that's where it was like, we anticipated this because they had the blood test, and then they called us back in person for the results, straight away, in like a real urgent sort of manner. So it was like, we knew that there was news going to come, and we sort of had this gut feeling that it wasn't going to be great news, but it was still news that just shocked us big time, for me, I was at work at the time, and I remember, because I had taken all that leave off prior, and I had been speaking to, I was speaking to my boss at the time, who is also a cancer survivor, by the way. She had, I think she had breast cancer, like maybe 5 or 6 years before Samara was diagnosed. So when I was telling her the story about, she's been sick and all this, and we're pushing for a blood test, and we're sort of fearing the worst in that. Like, when Nadia phoned me that day at work, like shortly after she found out what the story was, I remember the phone ringing, and I remember my boss looking at me, because she was anticipating the news as much as I was, because she wanted to know. And then as soon as I heard, I don't know what it was, maybe my body language or whatever, like, she was there, man. And then, like, it was a big breakdown, and she offered to drive me home and all that. Like, it was tough to hear that.
Thanks for sharing that. So you guys both found out, what was the first things you guys said to each other after finding out? How did that conversation go? Or was it just a lot of emotion?
There was a lot. I think it was a lot of emotion and a lot of commotion. It was just a lot of,
because it was the shock taking over. It was it was bittersweet, because we've been waiting for an answer, we didn't really prepare for the worst, because we just were those people, I guess, that thought it wasn't going to be
to you.
like, and we didn't know anything about anything at the time. Like, 9 years on, I feel like I could go be a nurse or something, like, I understand everything now, but back then it was just, I even remember making a stupid comment when the oncologist confirmed and sat us down to tell us, and he said blood cancer, and I got it mixed up with AIDS. And I said, and I was freaking out. And the worst time, because he's breaking the news of our lives to us, and I'm going, she had a wiggly, and I said this to him, I said, I have a question. She had a wiggly tooth the other day, and I pulled it out, and I've got a little cut on my thumb. And he's like looking at me, and I'm looking around, and no one's expressions make sense. So I realized really quickly, like, oh, I got it wrong, but I didn't know how wrong. But that's how dumb I was back then. It was just nothing made sense to me. So the shock of having a kid that's got cancer was like unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of shock, man, and it was I don't really recall the conversation all too well, Will, but I know that it was.
You remember the emotions? Yeah.
Yeah, it was really raw. There was a lot, like, it was obviously like support there for one another. I think if I recall, I might have said, "Look, I'll meet you at home. We'll go to the hospital. We'll do," because there was confusion. It was, But I think we were relieved that we knew now for sure that we could pinpoint exactly why she's been like this.
Yeah.
But then even even going into the hospital, like, reality didn't really kick in for me, because I was like, okay, so now we know what it is. Okay, the treatment, yeah, okay, cool. Like,
let's get her out of here.
All right, so how long is this going to be, sort of thing, just give her a tap or something, and sweet, she's all good. But nah, it took a while for us to really comprehend how big it was.
Yeah. So then from there, you guys lived pretty much in the hospital, and then in and out of the hospital, and utilized, Samara, I remember utilized even the Make-A-Wish Foundation was part of your lives and things like that. I remember coming to the hospital even in those first stages, and it being, you guys were, I think, still in shock because you were still very just moving through the process of what needed to take place, and being mum and dad, and feeding her, and she was quite weak at that point. So remembering all those times, how has your life now changed forever from this experience?
Me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, because I always, I'm very comfortable talking about this because I have a lot, and I always, like with clients, and I meet new people every day, and sometimes it comes up, and the way that I describe it overall is that this whole experience has been a blessing for us, because at the end of it, we got our daughter back almost scratch-free. So everything that happened kind of in the middle those were all like character building things, and it taught us a lot of lessons. Like, it strengthened us. I remember the social worker in the early stages when things were just so crazy, we were finding it hard together as a couple to like comfort each other properly, because we had so many emotions like anger and frustration and
a lot of self-blame as well.
Yes, a lot of self-blame. Just like I told you, I gave her a Panadol for the pain before we knew, and then her going into hospital, the same pain, they're giving her morphine, and that made me feel sick in the gut. So just a lot of reactive emotions were happening. And the social worker that's appointed, she had sat us down one day, and remember when she's like saying that not many couples survive this whole process, because it's 3 years of planned chemotherapy, 3 years of treatment. So she was just kind of telling us in the early stages, you guys have to find a way to work it out together to help her.
It's because it was tough, but I think what it's taught me, like, now that she's come through the other side and she's healthy, and you wouldn't even know that she had experienced childhood cancer, like, if you met her for the first time. Don't sweat the small stuff, like, seriously. I try not to be overly cynical or negative, or there's so much worse things that can happen in the world, and we dodged a bullet. Samara dodged a bullet, and with cancer, and like the doctors and all the professionals, man, I take my hat off to those guys, and they put in like the work that they do, you know, is pretty amazing that they see this every day, and they, you know, they manage to hold it all together, especially with children, you know, in hospital. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. If anything, for me personally, is like just to always have a positive outlook, you know, like be resilient and be strong and just push on through anything, I think.
Well, for me personally, like, you know, like since marrying Kim 2010, I think I met you guys while we're still dating, and that, like, seeing how you guys are now as people and with your character compared to back then, I see a big difference. You know, I'm coming from the outside, but I do remember coming, and we visited the hospital in the early days, like when you guys were allowed visitors and stuff. And when I walked into the room, could just feel the tension. It's just like a feeling of not knowing what's gonna go on. And I was, at that time, there wasn't many people surviving cancer like that I knew. So like in my mind, it just automatically just said like, man, it's like a hard road to climb. And we were all like praying our guts out and stuff. And I remember like me and Kim's dad gave like Samara a blessing. And I even remember when we helped Samara go to the toilet, you know, and Nick was like, you could just see like there's a lot going through Nick's mind. But the question I had was, during those times, were there times of hopelessness? Like, was there times where you felt like, oh man, she might not make it?
A lot of time.
Like, well, I differ on that. I never thought for a second that it was ever gonna go wrong.
Yeah.
Like it would ever, you know, be fatal for her. Like I just couldn't. I couldn't think that way. You know, like I couldn't let that into my mind.
Yeah. So that was an active thing for you, Nick, was fighting those thoughts that would creep in. You actively chose to stay positive and stay hopeful.
Just stayed, always, man. I just always stayed hopeful, always just stayed focused on like where she needed to be, you know? Like I never thought about, I just didn't want to prepare myself
Like
for that sort of stuff,
scenario.
you know?
Yeah, right.
But Nadia, for you, sometimes those thoughts would come in and go.
I suppose when she had a stroke.
Yeah, well, this is why I say it was a learning thing for me, because in the beginning, that's all I was flooded with was hopelessness. And I remember just even voicing that, I guess maybe I even did to you, Kim. I just distinctly remember saying to everybody, what am I going to do? You know, I hate not being in control, and I didn't even understand what this was, let alone what's on the cards for her. And then as a mom, it's, you know, that whole thing of am I going to lose my child at the end of this? That was always in the forefront for me, and I couldn't pass that. So that's when I was hopeless. And then I had learned I learned very quickly that wasn't going to help me. So then, you know, hopelessness wasn't really a big thing until, you know, I get my shit together and I get my stuff together. And
it's not a church podcast.
Oh, it just comes out. So what I'm saying is, like, I hate that feeling of hopelessness because it's just so unproductive. So I tackled the things that I didn't understand, and I started just to get my mind right, and that would be fine. And then something hard, she had a few tough things happen throughout her whole treatment. You know, and she had a stroke. That was the next time I felt hopeless, because it was like, oh, what the heck? We're dealing with cancer and now a stroke. What's going on? You know, like, but every time I would like have this moment of just letting myself go, and it didn't do me any good. I couldn't function that way. I was like no good to nobody, especially to Samara. So I learned to get all that, kind of process that quickly and push it not to the side, but just push it away so that I could keep focusing on her. And then every time I would feel hopeless, like it just became easier and easier to tackle that, because this whole journey is just full of uncertainty. Like At the beginning of treatment, they give you a plan and they say, this is how we're going to treat her over the 3 years. And then, like I said, unfortunately, she was allergic to one of the chemo drugs, which then a month later caused a stroke. And that's not on plan, obviously. So then we have to learn how to adapt really quickly. Otherwise, that's when I know that I would always get myself in a funk if I couldn't tackle these things head on. So I think that's what I've learned the most is like, you can't be complacent. You just have to like take the bull by its horns. And in her case, it was like her whole treatment. You just have to like throw yourself in it and learn as you go.
Yeah. And we drew strength from Samara too, because we could see that she was really struggling with the chemotherapy and with with all like the lumbar punctures, which is like the spinal taps they have to put her under. Man, how many surgeries did she have? Like, like ports and things like that. Like they were just prodding and poking her and giving her all types of injections and things. But like she it was obviously hard on her, losing her hair and pale skin and low blood counts and all the rest. But man, like Kim, you guys have seen her throughout the years, and like she took her in her stride. Like she was always joyful, always smiling, and
always eating.
Not always, but like she was always positive.
Yeah,
and I think
she was.
That's why I answered that question. Like I didn't. There were times that there was hopelessness, but I could never admit it, like I could not say it. Yeah.
I liked earlier you said, Nick, about the word resilient, and I really liked, because I find resilient is really effective when things like hard times come, because you could kind of get thrown it over and over, and you've already made the choice, like, I'm going to just keep persevering through the punches or whatever's happening, and the fight back was pretty strong. So I think just leading into our next question, I know for myself, like I felt a lot closer to you guys from this experience, and I felt like Will and I feel like we were always praying for you guys and for Samara, and then I felt like the wider family was always like trying to check in and whatnot, and then I know your family, Nick, came, everyone was flying to kind of spend time and help out. So what was it like for the wider family, and then for support-wise, what was support like, and what was it like to have support, or was there no support, or how do you feel?
The support.
Oh, there was heaps of support.
Yeah.
Like in the early days when Samara was diagnosed, like within a couple of weeks, like because, you can imagine it was no sleep, it was stress, it was like some of that hopelessness that we spoke about before. Nadia and I we actually got really, really sick, man, like with like really bad flu. Like
we're run down.
We were so run down. And like the support from the family at the time was like, you guys need to rest, like you actually need to go have some sleep. And so like for 48 hours, I think that we had just like, we were just like knocked out.
We didn't go to hospital for 2 days, in the first week of her, or the second week of her being in hospital.
And that was the support that family gave. Like I think my mom was there, like everybody was there. Like they said, you guys need to like get healthy so you can look after your daughter.
Yeah.
And so that was some early support. There was support, like, they organized people to come around to the house and like clean it from top to bottom, like things that we had neglected and things, because we're just our minds elsewhere.
Yeah.
My work was very supportive, Nadia's as well. Really, really supportive.
It's a nice time to experience that kind of support, because I think, unfortunately, unless you are in a situation like that, you'd only really experience it when somebody passes. So it's overwhelming to have, it was good though. And, we both come from really big families. So we had lots of people. We had lots of people to manage and juggle. And it's important for them too, because, Samara's the eldest in our family. She was our first baby, even like with you guys. So she's got a relationship. She had already established her own relationship with lots of different people who were all hurting almost as much as us, but in the same way. So that was quite overwhelming to watch everybody so emotional at the same time, as well as us, because it's like, I'm crying hard, you're crying hard. People in the car park waiting to come in, they're crying hard. There are people on the phone. Like it's good. It's just so overwhelming.
Yeah. So then, how's your life now changed day to day? Is there routines that Samara has to keep up? What does remission look like for those that have no idea, that are listening and watching, and we've come through this journey now? What does it look like today? Is there much involvement in her care today, or is she quite, because I know her, so I see her and she looks like a very functional, onto it 17-year-old ready to move into adulthood. But like, for those that don't know Samara, I suppose, and we'll bring her on in a minute, but like, what does that look like for you guys and for her?
Well, for the rest of her life, she'll need to get regular checkups. How frequent is that? Every year now?
She's back to 6 months. So it varies, but she's it goes from being very, very intense after she finishes treatment, and then as they're satisfied with her progress, then they stretch it out. So eventually she'll be on every year, but she's currently once every 6 months. But
just check her bloods.
Yeah, they do very thorough checks.
Yeah.
ECGs.
Cool. Yeah.
So she was she finished her treatment when she was 10, 11?
2013.
2013. So how old was she? I can't do the math.
Like, let's say 10, 11.
She was 10. So she was diagnosed at 8 and she finished her treatment at 10. And there hasn't been anything since then. Like for the first couple of years after treatment, I think she was getting blood tests every couple of months, and should go in like every 3 months or something to be weighed and check her bloods and stuff. But in the last couple of years, they've really pulled back as she's coming into adult years. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
I just wanted to just like acknowledge your guys' experience of hopelessness, because I know there's a lot of people that will be watching, and because we focus a lot on like having hope and fighting back, and like you guys sharing your experience with that is gold, because a lot of people understand the principle of trying to have hope, but you guys sharing what you guys did to fight back and actually keep going and have hope, it's like it's gold information for everyone. And then my question was, because you've experienced being hopeless and then fighting to have hope, and then the stroke, and then you get another opportunity to have hopelessness and fight to have hope again. When you guys go through day-to-day life now, when you stumble again, when you stumble with like trials and stuff, is it a lot easier because you've dealt with something so like with hope? I'm just talking about with hope. Is it easier to?
I think it's as far as perspective goes, it's changed us so that it's changed our mindsets. Do you think? Yeah. Well, I know for me it has. But can I just add that it's funny you talk about that I totally forgot that your thing was have hope, fight back, right?
Yeah.
Because that's all you have control over is like the hope in the end, because you can't control anything else. And once you control that, then everything else within you kind of clicks, and that's how you can center yourself and then get a little bit of clarity, because with a journey like that, everything is up in the air and it's just so messy, and life is going to stay messy. So if you can decide within yourself that, like Nick was saying, he never had any doubt that she wasn't going to make it through. And I was the same too, but I just let myself get lost a few times. But once you do decide that, then it just makes you have a very clear path. You know no matter what happens, it's kind of like staying on the balls of your feet, like you're ready. It's going to suck and you don't know what's coming, but the fact that you still have that hope and what's the word?
Like focus or
and determination and just all of those good positive things. I really think personally that's what has helped us. Like Nick was saying earlier, Samara's mindset and her whole state of mind the whole time was just positive. And even when we felt crap and we were like struggling with each other or within ourselves to overcome a tough time, she might have been in the hospital, whatever, we'd always look at her and she just like laughed her way through the whole thing. I don't know if you will call it, if she was oblivious to how severe or serious the situation was or whatever, but she was just so like, she didn't let it affect her. And I always say that that's what was a big part of her recovery, was that she was just happy. She was,
and it's like she knew the seriousness of it, but from a child's mind, but yeah, she was like, I just drew inspiration and hope from her throughout the treatment. And to this day, like I mentioned before, like I don't really I try not to let things build, you know what I mean? Like just don't sweat, small stuff, like just find inspiration in what you love and who you love, and just persevere. And
cool. No, thank you for that. It's some really good things that you've shared with us. And I know from my perspective, Nadia's the oldest in her family, and even amongst the wider family and my side of the family, like she's quite someone everyone relies on. No, I'm gonna cry. I did
so well up.
Yeah, you did really well, and then to look up to. But she quite leads quite well, and I don't know if it's from this experience or not, Nadia. But Nadia's become quite the businesswoman in her own right, and I don't know if this experience has built your confidence to, if I can, have a daughter that fights cancer, I can sure as hell build a business, because what's the difference? And then when I look at Nick, I think Nick's very always what he's talked about. Like, I don't know about you, do you agree? But like quite resilient and hopeful. And then every time you see him, it's always like, oh, I love you, man. And if you catch him drunk, it's a whole nother level of love. But I
remember some of my fights.
Let's not forget about the video of her and your bout.
So I think your trial of what it was has actually built. Your characters are actually quite amazing. I don't know if you guys realize that, but it's quite, and that's why I think it projects on to your daughter, because she's a product of her environment and what you guys built her. So is she around? Is she happy to come?
She's right there listening to the whole thing.
Hey, cool. Before we bring her over though, can I, if we do cut this into the thing?
Yeah.
Camp Quality is a
cool.
wonderful charity for families and children dealing with childhood cancer. They were there from the beginning. They were there throughout, and they were there after she finished treatment as well. They do fantastic things for kids in the community. So I just want to get
the spirit lifted. So that in line with what you guys are, all about as well, because their whole motto is laughter is the best medicine. So that, those positive things, so much positive reinforcement into a real shitty situation just produces like happy kids that might have tubes hanging out of them, but they don't care because they can carry on. And when your head's right, then the body follows. That's what I think anyways. And all the drugs and treatments do what they're supposed to, but you can't, I think it'd be a very big difference if Samara was just laid up miserable and hated the whole 3 years. That would have, I don't know what we would have been left with, what she would have been like if that was the case.
Cool. So that's called Camp Quality, is it?
Camp
yeah,
quality.
Camp Quality.
Camp Quality.
And also, Camp Quality, and also the musicians and the
Yes.
entertainers in the hospitals, and
Yeah.
Nick loves
yeah,
them.
they are
He
so
loves
good.
them.
I was actually about to mention after he said Camp Quality, because I remember being there a couple of times and they were doing their dances, you know, growing adults, but they were like right into it. Yeah, so definitely a shout out for people like that, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's have a look at Samara. So this is Samara. Here we go. Hello, Samara. So here we have 17-year-old cancer, what do you call that? Survivor. Yep, survivor. Kicked cancer's butt is what I see on stuff.
She's undefeated.
Undefeated. Good work.
Stop
it. So yes. So Samara, I guess while we wrap this up and we've had a great chat with Mum and Dad, is there something you would say if there's people out there watching that have a child with cancer or they're fighting cancer themselves? Do you have anything that you would say to them?
Well, it's really best just to not think about it. I feel like in my state of mind, don't think about it and it'll go away.
She was just thinking about her next meal. That made her happy. Like,
That's another way of having faith, you know. Like,
I guess.
Just move on. Just move forward.
So, like, you know, a child that's
yeah, what if you were in the hospital and you saw someone come in and it was their first time having treatment, what would you say to them if they looked like they were a bit unsettled?
Well,
On the spot, maybe while you think about it, what would Mum and Dad say to parents?
mm-hmm.
You guys, was there something you would say to parents that are currently fighting this battle and feel hopeless or feel, you know, in those feels of how you've been there, done that? What would you say to parents out there that are facing challenges such as your own?
Not you.
no. Look, if there's any parents out there that are in this situation that we spoke of that are watching right now, definitely just, you know, like, I'm here to talk to, like, just speak to your family members, speak to your friends. Like, it's okay to be emotional, you know, it's okay to show emotion. I think like a lot of fathers, a lot of guys sort of, you know, just from upbringings, just sort of hold things in. It's not the right thing to do. It's good to just talk about it. Just stay strong for your, you know, for your wife, for your family, for your child, and just keep a very, very positive state of mind, and don't let things get you down. Like, there's, you know, just think positive and seek inspiration from things around you, from, you know, from people that inspire you, and don't blame yourself as well. Is very important. Especially if you're dealing with a child with sickness, it's quite natural for a parent to look inwards and sort of try to find an answer somewhere that they're not going to find it, and they might sort of start beating up on themselves a little bit. It's nobody's fault. So that's the advice I give.
Thank you. And Samara, back to you. Anything you would give?
Well, everyone's life has a down point. So I reckon that was my down point. And it's just, you just need to keep yourself busy, I guess, like, to take your mind off things. I kept myself busy by watching TV and eating. It just made me.
And then in your recovery, you've become quite the Polynesian dancer. We've gone to Samara's concert since then, and she can shake her booty and do things like that.
Well, I tried. It took a couple minutes.
Yeah. Cool.
I think Samara's advice is actually practical for kids.
Yeah.
I think her, as funny it is for adults, I think her talking to another child, experience it. That's the best advice. Keep busy, watch TV, take your mind off the seriousness.
Yeah.
One question I had for you, Samara, if you can remember back to when you were going through the hospital and stuff till today, do you see a growth within your parents or not really because you're with them every day?
Yeah, I do actually. The mom's she's become more, I guess. She was always confident, but now she's just more, stop. she always talks more.
Is she kind of?
True. No, she's just really cool.
So you admire your mom's confidence, yeah?
Yeah, Dad, he's learned to trust me a bit more.
I trust you.
Trust me at all. But I think he's growing in his own ways. Like he said, he's become more emotional. He's accepted that it's okay to.
That's huge.
To express yourself. It's okay to express yourself. Yes, cool.
Can I add? So that's what I wanted. This is my advice to parents. Is to not focus on not to focus on the diagnosis, as hard as it is, because it's there, and that's the thing that you fear. It's just to take every day as it comes, because every day is going to change, and to just live as best you can in that day, and just kind of learn to roll with the punches, because if you keep focusing on the end, then you're just going to lose yourself in the middle, because I was talking before about how you get a bit scattered. There's just everything's up in the air. Like there's so many emotions, there's so many thoughts, and then not only that, we didn't touch on this, but there's stresses of home that are still going on outside of that. So you worry about those things, like while you're cooped up at a hospital for weeks at a time, bills still need to be paid and all that kind of stuff. So just as best you can, make make the treatment a journey, because then you have a start and an end, and all the middle bits is just the stuff that you're kind of navigating through. That will help you to keep focused. That's what I found worked the best for us. We got into this really solid routine, even with her. I knew that she's going to have to do blood tests almost daily in the beginning, and the first one she did, she was crying, and it's not that I didn't want her to cry, it's just that she was so petrified and scared. For maybe the first week she was like that, because they've got to put a needle in you, in your hand or in your arm, they're always asking for blood. And so we taught her very quickly not to fear that. And it got to the point where after she's out of the hospital and we're doing more things at home, I could take her into a QML, and she walks in and people go, oh, it's a kid, or we don't have the person here that can do a kid. And she's like, no, you can go. And she didn't, it just didn't make her. So having something like that not be an issue, but that's a new everyday problem we have to face. All those kind of things. She didn't really have a problem with anything except for even when you have to access support, we just had to work through each fear that she had and not make it something that was going to be a big hurdle, because with these kind of treatments, you're getting jabbed and prodded every single day, all day, every day sometimes. So it just kind of becomes like the new norm. That way, I think that helped her mind to stay happy, whatever. So
that's good. Yeah, that's real helpful. That's good for people to hear and listen to. But that's all the questions we have for you guys. And we love you guys, and I think you've shared some real gems tonight, the three of you.
With Samara mentioning about the confidence thing, Nadia has since started a business where she doesn't actually need referrals, because Her,
Speaks for itself.
Nadia's your person.
Yes, but also a plug on that is if you would like to train to do lashes, Samara is being trained by her mum, and so have many other women. So Nadia runs a training kind of college, so to say, where you can go and take a course to be a lash tech.
What's the name of your business, Nadia? And we'll put a link below so people can access it.
NHM Lash.
NHM Lash in Mount Cravat. So keep hustling, and we're proud of you guys. We love you guys. Thank you for sharing tonight, and we will see you later.
Thanks heaps, guys. That was really, really nice.
Cool.